All right. Thank you. So you're done with your presentation, Dr. Grant?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So now we will begin the Q&A portion of of the presentation. And okay, so before we do, besides your email, do you have a website or can people follow you online?
Yeah, yes, I'm on Twitter at my handle is WBGrant2.
All right.
Uh, and I actively promote vitamin D there. I also have a website, WB, sorry, sunarc.org, sunarc.org. So you can find me that way. And my book is now available for free through uh, my Twitter account, my X account,
Okay.
WB.
So you can get a digital copy of your book. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And then people can also get the book through our website, therealtruthabouthealth.com, and go to bookstore, and you'll find Embrace the Sun by Dr. Grant.
Okay.
As
It's
well.
no longer available for sale as a hard copy. That's why it's now available as a
Oh,
digital
okay.
copy.
Thank you for that clarification. So now let's go ahead and begin with the Q&A. If the audience would like to ask questions, you can simply raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll pick on you when we get the opportunity to. Um, so how do you address studies that suggest a strong link between sun exposure and increased risk of melanoma?
Well, there is a link. Um, what we try to tell people is that you have to have sensible sun exposure. Um, Try to avoid burning. Um, Try to if you're going to be working in this outdoors, you might want to raise your vitamin D levels through supplementation because that will help. If you get above 40 or 50 nanograms per milliliter, that will help protect you against um, burning and cancer. And it turns out that those who develop melanoma have the best outcome if they have high vitamin D levels. It turns out that since melanoma is a cancer, vitamin D reduces the progression and mortality just like it does for any type of cancer.
So should everyone be supplementing with vitamin D?
Um, I would say yes, um, because most people think that if they're in the sun, if they work outdoors or something, they might have adequate vitamin D levels. But if they cover up, they use women, for example, use a lot of makeup, and makeup now has vitamin D skin protection, UV block. Um, if if they're out in winter, they're not making vitamin D. If they're out when the sun is not too high, they're not making vitamin D. If they wear too many clothes, they're not making enough vitamin D. So um, it's really um, and the benefits of vitamin D do accrue even up above 30, 40, 50 nanograms per milliliter. And I'd say going up to around 50 nanograms per milliliter, you're safe and having a better health outcome.
So sunscreen, with what you talk about in your presentation, so sunscreen blocks UVB, which gets converted into vitamin D, and it doesn't block UVA, which causes cancer, right? Is that a correct understanding?
Well, it doesn't block UVA as well as UVB, and the UVA is what it causes melanoma and basal cell carcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma, which is the most serious skin cancer other than melanoma, is caused by UVB, as are cataracts. So if you're going to be out in the sunlight, you want to wear glasses to protect against UVB hitting your eyes. But now it's only UVB reduces the risk of internal cancers. UVA doesn't have any effect on internal cancers.
And what about skin burning? Is that UVA versus UVB? Does it matter?
That's both UVA and UVB.
Okay.
But it's probably more, it's more the UVB and the shortwave UVA. So the skin, most of the transparent skin sunblocks go into the the shortwave UVA, but they still let the long wave UVA transmit and the visible.
So when should someone use sunscreen? If they're going out for a little bit, obviously a little bit is good for you. When do you think?
You might want to put it on after you've been in the sun a little while, so you can get the benefits of UVB.
And are there sunscreens that are better than others? Some of our guests are talking about zinc as opposed to these chemical-based sunscreens. Any thoughts on that?
Well, dermatologists, there's a picture of a dermatologist in Australia putting on zinc oxide. His face is painted entirely white. The vitamin D levels of dermatologists in Australia are very low compared to the average average Australian. I mean, it's zinc oxide is going to block all the UVA and UVB, but I don't think that's necessary. I don't know which of the sun blocks are better for UVA. And if you want to make sure you have UVA protection, maybe the zinc oxide is a better way to go. Or just wear clothing.
Okay, so to cover yourself up. And is vitamin D more important at some ages than at other ages?
Yes, it's very important in the first year of life. It's very important during pregnancy and reproductive life. It gets more important as time goes on. If you look at all the diseases like cancer and the severity of infectious diseases, they start increasing above the age of 50 or 60. And if you look at COVID, the people most likely to die were over the age of 70 or 80. So you probably want to make sure you're supplementing as you age.
And so what would be the appropriate dose if you weren't getting your blood checked right away and you just wanted to have a safe dose, given that almost everybody is deficient in D, given our current lifestyles?
Okay. So the Institute of Medicine in 2011 recommended 600 IU per day for people up to the age of 70 and 800 IU per day for people over the age of 70. But in 2011, they were interested in two things. One was they only had results for bone health. They also had observational studies that showed that people in observational studies who enrolled with higher 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels had higher mortality rates than people with intermediate levels. And they didn't understand that what happened before that period was that as people came in to see doctors in the early 2000s, if they were found to have osteomalacia or osteoporosis, doctors said, now start supplementing with vitamin D. So they lived their entire life up to 60 or 70 or so without supplementing with vitamin D. And they probably developed diseases related to vitamin D deficiency. And very quickly in the observational study, they died, but it was probably related to vitamin D deficiency earlier. They were also at that time concerned about the VITAL study, and they were going to recommend that anybody in the VITAL study could take as much vitamin D as they were recommending in this 2011 report. So they figured if they recommended 2,000 IU per day, that would destroy the VITAL study. Well, also in 2011, Michael Hollick convened a study group for the Endocrine Society in the United States, and they recommended getting above 30 nanograms per milliliter, whereas the Institute of Medicine said only above 20 nanograms per milliliter. So what we've shown now is that everybody should be supplementing with at least 2,000 IU per day. I've been supplementing with 5,000 IU per day, which got my level up to around 60 or 70 nanograms per milliliter. But I'm a small person weighing about 130 pounds. Obese people need more than thin people. So 4,000 IU per day for obese people would be more what we'd recommend than 2,000. If you're African American, 4,000 would be more recommended. Hispanic between 2,000 and 4,000. So it depends on several factors, but those are some of the considerations.
And there's also discussions in this world with liquid versus the sublingual or the tablets. What is the best way to supplement with vitamin D?
Okay. It turns out it doesn't matter whether you take vitamin D with the meal, with fat, without. Orange juice is fortified with vitamin D. Bread is fortified. Milk is fortified. There's a powder version. There's also the version where vitamin D is in a lipid of fat of some sort. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that it's a reputable manufacturer, and that the vitamin D on the dose is what's on the label is what's in the dose.
Okay, and
taking vitamin D in the middle of the day might be a little bit more better than taking it in the morning and evening.
Why?
Evening it might affect with sleep as you're trying to metabolize the vitamin D.
Okay,
and if you're measuring your vitamin D level, you try to measure it during the day, middle of the day as well.
Okay, so I think one of our speakers had said something about vitamin D being fat soluble. Is that not true then?
Yes, excess vitamin D can be stored in the fat tissues, but it is, and if you start reducing weight and dissolving the fat, you're going to raise your vitamin D levels, because it's going to then go back to liver and convert to 25-hydroxyvitamin D. But I mean, it's not like vitamin C that's in and out. It's water soluble. It's in and out very quickly.
Okay. And what are the most convincing studies that support your stance on the benefits of vitamin D, either through sun exposure or supplementation?
Well, I published a paper in 2002 with Alberto Munoz, is an open access paper at Nutrients on the historical overview of vitamin D in cancer and the mechanisms. And we go through all of the epidemiological studies, the clinical trials, the observational studies, the mechanism, and we show that there's a general agreement, if you look at all the studies, that sun exposure and vitamin D reduce the risk of cancer incidence and mortality rates. So that's cancer, infectious diseases. So I published the paper in 2020, hypothesizing that vitamin D would reduce the risk of COVID based on mechanisms and effects for influenza and pneumonia. And the latest clinical trials and observational studies show that indeed vitamin D does reduce the risk of COVID incidence and mortality.
Great, thank you. So with that concludes our time. So thank you so much for that great presentation, extremely informative. If we could unmute the audience so they can say thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Graham.
Appreciate it.